Welcome to a Strata Prime conversation with Google about business continuity planning. I'm Andrew Livingstone, Principal Architect at Strata Prime. I've been an admin in the Google community for over 12 years and been working in IT for over 20. Strata Prime is a Google Cloud partner servicing organizations in Canada and the US. We have a deep specialization in work transformation, identity management, security, and compliance, and we're experts in Google Workspace, Google Cloud, Google Voice, and Chrome Enterprise. Now, joining us here today are two very talented Googlers. We have Nico Arnston and Tony Majewski. Tony, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, thank you, Andrew. Tony Majewski, Workspace go-to-market strategist. Been at Google for a year and a half now, coming up on 6 years in this wonderful Google Cloud ecosystem, typically based in Atlanta, Georgia, but very excited to be up in Toronto today.
I'm also very excited. I'm Nico Arnson. I'm a Google Workspace specialist covering our enterprise clients here in Toronto.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about business continuity solutions now. So business continuity planning is about planning for when things go wrong, when IT systems are unavailable, and how we're going to provide continuity of service. And Workspace has become a little bit more popular with companies who are looking to diversify by standing up Google Workspace alongside their existing IT solutions so that they have full vendor redundancy in the event of an issue.
Right. And it's important to highlight, Andrew, that we're not talking about ripping and replacing your existing Microsoft Office or communication productivity platform. This is specifically designed to sit in the background as a break glass in case of emergency solution. In case of an attack or ransomware, you have something to exit.
That's right. Yeah. So it's really setting up Google Workspace in your environment and having those services be available as a standby solution. So that would be if you wanted to provide continuity for email, we're going to be setting up the Gmail service. If we need to provide continuity for document access, sharing, and collaboration, we'll be putting in Drive. We can also do chat and voice for other communications that are needed in the event of your primary vendor being unavailable due to a denial of service attack, ransomware, or other type of event that's just blocking access to core services.
So, Andrew, I've got an integration question. What does this look like?
Yeah, I mean, from an integration standpoint, there's two things that are going to happen. First, we're going to integrate to synchronize key data. So if you wanted your recovery solution to have email available, we could synchronize the last 90 days of mail or even the entire email history for the company and keep that up to date on an ongoing basis. We could do the same thing with document repositories, whether that's OneDrive, SharePoint, on-premise file servers, doesn't matter. We can, do the integration to synchronize those as well. The other part of integration is really around identity, right? So we want to make sure that in the event of a disaster, there's accounts ready for executives and stakeholders that are going to need to access these systems. So we'll federate with Active Directory so that identities are published into Google. And then in the event of an AD outage, Google can act as the identity manager. And that will also work with third-party identity providers if, companies using Okta or another IDP. It just provides us the ability to integrate to keep the environment synchronized, but then also operate independently with no dependencies on your existing infrastructure, because that's really what we're contemplating in a business continuity event, is that your primary services are unavailable, and that's why you need these redundant services to be there.
Andrew, and follow up to that, would this be a viable solution for a carrier outage, for example, like it occurred earlier this year?
Yeah, I mean, the events of this year with a major carrier outage here in Canada caused a lot of organizations to really realize, how reliant they were on cellular services for remote workers. Like in the past, when everybody was in the office, it was really about the office infrastructure and office continuity of services and having redundant internet pipes and things like that. But when, a large percentage of your workforce is remote, a lot of people are reliant on cellular service. So one of the things that we've seen is actually pairing Google Workspace for continuity for email and file access and web applications, is pairing that with Chrome Enterprise devices. So Chrome Enterprise devices are fully managed Google Chrome hardware, the fully managed Chrome OS, and fully managed application access with all of the security features that we talked about earlier. And those Chrome devices can be sourced with multi-vendor LTE support. So now not only do you have a solution for all of, access to email, critical communications, and voice, but you've bundled that in a piece of hardware that can also provide resilience to like third-party carrier outages or network outages of any kind. And that's something that we've seen a lot more interest in recently because of the year's events. So just wrapping up, you can see that Workspace can definitely be used as a business continuity solution alongside a Microsoft environment. And Google's approach to security with the Beyond Corp security model can allow regulated industries to meet and exceed their security standards that they have today, which really builds this comprehensive solution to address business continuity.
So we've had some pre-submitted questions come in for today's event, which we always appreciate. The first one is, so this is interesting, right? What does this solution look like more in depth, right? What are we going to get out of this engagement? How long does it take to design? How long does it take to deploy as a solution? What additional services are offered underneath this umbrella?
Yeah, so like at StrataPrime, we offer this as a managed service, right? Because there's a few different components here. So there's an engagement in terms of doing the discovery and the integration with a company's environment. And we have the reference architectures already developed for all of the major providers, whether it's third-party identity, whether it's on-prem, whether it's Azure AD, and working with major companies in the US and Canada. So there's a short engagement to do the discovery and figure out the best way to do that integration with a company's environment. And then following that, it's really about what option a company wants in terms of data synchronization, right? You don't have to synchronize the full email history and all documents across the company. There's a lean approach where you just want the accounts to be available with identities provisioned. There's a mid-tier approach where we're really looking at maybe keeping 30 or 90 days worth of email available. Or for some companies, they also need certain document repositories and libraries to support their business operations and how they work and have collaboration and voice solutions. So there's that high tier option as well. So really the engagement is short in terms of it takes less than 30 days to get this set up, integrated, and data replicating, at which time you're protected. And then there's a little bit of change management with IT groups to make sure that they understand what the series of events are going to be in the event that the business continuity plan needs to be evoked.
And it's important to call out that we've seen organizations do a mixed approach, right? They don't need to have a one tier for all employees, right? So maybe their executive team has a full suite of solutions and integrations, whereas the rest of the employee base has just a backup account, right? And so I think it's important to highlight that in that discovery, you'll work alongside Google and StrataPrime to understand what solution makes sense for which of your employees and how to best implement it.
Yeah, completely agree.
I think one of the things that I really like out of the offering as well is the ability to establish a cadence of mock events, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. To ensure that the solution is ready to go. And there's also strong familiarity within the organization.
Yeah, Tony's right. So a lot of organizations, it's actually part of like their compliance and risk audits that they are actually testing their business continuity plans. And as somebody's been in IT for over 20 years, that doesn't always happen. So including these engagements that we actually put it in, to your point, to be a quarterly thing that we're going to go and do little mock events. Because this is such a light touch in terms of integration, it doesn't require a lot of the internal IT teams. Sometimes we're just working with security operations teams to sort of test and ensure, data is replicated and it's there, and logging into accounts to ensure that switchover is available. So we make that part of the engagement because, having been in IT for 20 years, I know that stuff doesn't always get done.
And, sometime when I first got into tech, backups to tape. Sometimes that.
Do you have the tape?
Does it still work?
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of slides into our next question sort of seamlessly, right? And so God forbid an event does happen, right? And your organization is compromised. How does this actually go into action? What are the steps and how do we work with organizations to get this into place?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like putting this in context, that some folks will be wondering about like RTO and RPO, right? So like recovery time objective, like how long is it going to take us to switch over? These counts are available, right? So the in terms of how long it takes to switch over is just getting the message to users or them realizing that services are down and logging into those alternative accounts. Because Google will act as the identity provider when Active Directory or the third-party IDP is down, there's nothing that needs to be done. The users can just sign in and they're off and running. From a recovery point objective, right, which is how much data loss or how much data is in this environment, that's going to be a function of what option we chose for data replication. Am I replicating data into this environment on an ongoing basis so that there's low latency, or were we doing it on a periodic basis? So based on the discovery, we would work with the company to define what those two measures are for them. Like how much data loss are they willing to tolerate for this business continuity solution, and how quickly do they want it to be available? So it's usually very short, Nico, for the accounts. And for the data, it's really up to the company to choose what requirement they need to meet.
Perfect. And so for our final question that came in, how does StrataPrime handle change management, right? Ensuring that employees, if something should happen, how are they going to be familiar with the solution moving forward should they need to use it?
Yeah, I mean, as a Google Cloud partner that specializes in work transformation, bringing companies into Google is something that we do a lot and we have a lot of experience with. And I'd love to tell you how, like, we're the best at it and that's why it goes real smoothly. But the truth is that there's just so many users now that are Google users in the environment.
Right.
Workspace has billions of users. Compound that with the pandemic when parents were at home and were part-time IT administrators for Google Classroom. So when we're doing change management now, it's changed a lot in the last few years where people just know they're like, oh, okay, docs and email. Yeah, no problem. I'm good, right? Just like, where are the company templates? Okay, I'm good. So change management has changed. But, speaking more seriously about it, as part of our engagements, we do some change management training, providing people with switching guides, like where they need to go to find things, making sure they know where they can access distribution lists, because in a business continuity event, communication becomes the most important thing. So it's less about like, here's how you use Google Workspace and more like, here's where the things are that you're going to need to manage this event at your company and ensure that things keep running. So we take users through that and make sure that people are very comfortable with knowing where things are and what they need to do.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think that's an often overlooked component of the change management piece, especially coming out of the last 2 years. But 3 billion active users is a lot, right? And especially when you compare that against the internet-ready population globally, which is, I think a little less than double that, right? So it is, I think, pretty heavily utilized and recognized, not just for Workspace, but also for things like Chrome and Chrome devices. So
Yeah, absolutely. What we learned today is that there's some really important regulatory changes that are happening both here in Canada and abroad. And organizations do need to take business continuity a little bit more seriously and focus on diversification of risk. And Google Workspace can absolutely help. And us here at StrataPrime can help you wherever you are in that journey, whether it's putting together a business continuity plan, testing out some of the things that we talked about today, or even digging into the details of some of these regulations in a little bit more detail. So if you're interested in reading a little bit more about what you heard here today, you can visit strataprime.com, where there'll be a one-pager available on business continuity that includes information about the solutions we talked about, the regulatory changes, and a bunch of other information for you. And then from the website, you can feel free to contact us at any time if you do want to reach out and engage.